Hi, welcome to new lecture. So in this lecture we will be talking about strings. But before we dive deeper into strings, I actually want to ask you a simple question. So we know so far about primitive data types, right, and arrays. So if you want to store a single character, we can actually create a variable and store that character in it. But what if I want to store collection of characters together? For example, your name, right? So your name generally will comprise of lot more characters at least, and it will not be a single character. So if you have to store that, how are you going to store it considering the knowledge we have till now? So one option that we have is that we create arrays and character array, something like this. So you can create a character array because array stores all elements or entries together, right? So you can create a character array to store collection of characters, or a word I should say, that you can do. Another alternative that we have to do something similar, by something similar I mean to store collection of characters together, is a string. So you can do something like this. So string basically is another type, and it's a non-primitive data type. So it's not a primitive data type, it's a non-primitive data type, right? So that is a string. So you can create a string with S capital, and string str is just a variable name and coding is the value. So you can create some string something like this. Now we have two options. One is to create a character array, and other option is to create a string. Which one is better? So string actually is easier if you want to store strings or collection of characters together, because string in itself provides us with lot more features and functions to do lot of tasks easily. For example, if I have a string like this, or first of all, let's say this is one string and maybe this is another string. I want to combine these two strings together. Now imagine that these two are stored as character arrays. So you have this and you have this, right, in two character arrays. If you want to concatenate these two strings, you will have to write down code to create a new array and then copy all elements of first two strings and then put them in the third array, right? So this is what you will have to do. Now using strings, you'll realize that this is a lot more easier, and this is just a one-line code that you have to write. You don't really have to create new array, copy everything and do all that task. So that is something which is already handled internally for you, and you don't have to take the pain to do that. Similarly, if you have a string and you want to find substring, maybe some part of it, maybe this much part of it. So if you have to do it using character array, you will have to write down the for loop to loop from index 2 to index in this case 4, and then pick all characters. But using string, again, this will be a one-line code. You don't really have to write down the for loops and do all that stuff together. In fact, eventually we'll realize that there are a lot more stuff that is already there, and that is there in easier way to implement, so that we don't have to take the pain to do that. Okay, so clearing it and talking more about strings now. To create a string, this is something which you can do obviously. If you want to find out the length of the string, then all you have to do is call length function. So string whose length you want to find out, a dot and length. This will give you length of the string. So if coding is the string, length will be 6. Now one important point that I want to highlight here is ultimately to store collection of characters you need an array. The same is the case with string even. So string also internally stores a character array where all the characters that you want to store are put. What benefit is string offering us? So you can think of string as a wrapper above this character array. You don't have to directly interact with the character array, make changes to the character array, copy stuff, add stuff and all that. String class will automatically, or string I should say, will automatically handle it for you. So you don't have to write all that, but yes, deep down underneath you should know that things are stored in a character array itself. So by string stored in a character array, I mean that the way we have indexing in arrays, similarly you will be able to use indexing in string as well. So n being 4th and g being 5th. So 0, C at 0th index, O at first index, D at second index, and so on. So similarly you have indexing here as well. And if you want to access a particular character at a particular index, I should say, then you can do that using char at. So string dot char at 2. This is what you have. This will give you the character at second index, which is D. So you can do that. You can use length to figure out length. You can use charAt to find out a particular character. Syntax like this is not allowed in Java, the way you write it in arrays, right? So you can do it in arrays. In fact, in other languages, if you're talking about strings, then this syntax is allowed. In C++ it is okay, in Python it is okay, but in case of Java, this is not. This is not a valid syntax. Valid syntax will be to use charAt. So you will have to use charAt to access particular element if you want to. So this was basic around string. Another point that I want to highlight is there is something called empty string as well. Now by empty string, I mean just this. When you create a string, you enclose the characters within double quotes, right? So all the characters, if you're talking about single character, it will be in single quotes, but if you're talking about string, collection of characters, it will be in double quotes. So empty string is just two double quotes together and nothing in between. In fact, if you try to find out length of empty string, and if I try and comment it out here, then length of empty string is 0. So it's a 0 length string, nothing added to it, just empty. What if I add a space here? Will it still be empty? So adding a space in between brackets is not an empty string. Its length will be 1 because there is one space. So this is a common mistake, I think. People tend to confuse between empty string and a string with a space. So it's not actually an empty string. Empty string will be just two brackets together, sorry, just two quotes together and nothing in between. Okay, so couple of cautions that you should take here. For example, when you are trying to access a particular character, what if I try to access a char at -1 index? Now -1 is not a valid array index. So the way we used to get array index out of bound exception, we will get string index out of bound error here as well. And in fact, if you try to go out of bounds on positive side as well, for example, the last character that is valid in a 6 length string is index 5. Index 5 is valid. But what if I try to access index 6? So if you try to access index 6, then you will get a string index out of bound exception here as well. Right? So this is just an introduction to string, basic around string. I'll recommend that you try and create a string and just play around with these two functions for now. Try things that you want to. Eventually in next session, we will talk about strings and different options, different features that we have in detail. Thank you.